Creativity is scary, whether it involves trying something new, putting yourself out there, or simply facing the terror of the blank page.
That isn't very reassuring.
There are many parts of the creative process where it can feel like fear has frozen our creativity in carbonite. So how can we find a more productive, a more creative way to relate to fear? Hello! I'm Jenny, I'm a creativity researcher and a coach, and this is Reclaiming Creativity, where we explore what it means to live a creative life, because life with creativity is better than life without it. Over the past decade, as I've slowly been incorporating more creativity into my life, fear has been a constant companion, but so has C3PO. I got this keychain to remind me how to handle my fear when it inevitably pops up anytime I try to do something creative. So today I wanted to share how C3PO has helped me face my fears. FACE is actually a framework I developed. As a recovering management consultant, I can't help but think in terms of frameworks for pretty much everything. I even used a framework in my wedding vows. You think I'm kidding. So we'll go through this FACE framework step by step, but first, a bit of background. As I made more space in my life for creativity, the level of fear I felt increased dramatically. So I went in search of solutions. But I found a lot of the conversation around how to deal with fear very macho. I mean, how many times have you heard someone say, feel the fear and do it anyway? Or better yet, advice to simply be fearless. And there's that great quote from Dune.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear, and I will permit it to pass over me. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
I love that quote. It's so badass. But this approach just doesn't work for me. As hard as I've tried, I can't simply will my fear to disappear. So I was drawn to softer approaches to dealing with fear. Elizabeth Gilbert has this great metaphor about how starting any creative project is like setting out on a road trip. Fear comes along on the road trip because we can't leave it behind, but it sits in the backseat. It can't drive, it can't navigate, it can't even pick the playlist. And that's how I thought about C3PO. Why C3PO? I'd say fear is probably his defining characteristic.
We're doomed.
Anytime they're about to do something adventurous,
No more adventures.
C3PO doesn't think it's a good idea.
We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness.
Even though he complains and catastrophizes,
We're doomed.
he never gets left behind.
Wait for me! Wait! Stop! Typical. Come on.
He still comes along on the adventure. So using C3PO as an avatar for my fear, I developed this framework, which is actually working pretty well for me, so I figured I'd share it with you. F is for friendliness. I used to treat fear as an enemy. I wished I could just be free of my fear, and I fantasized about how much better off I'd be without it. But this is where C3PO comes in, because I don't actually think that Star Wars would be better off without C3PO. I mean, I like C3PO. He's smart, he's funny, we have shared interests in languages
I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication.
and storytelling.
Batatarundi, Darth Vader.
He's also well-intentioned. As a protocol droid, he just wants everyone to get along.
But that just wouldn't be proper. I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to intrude.
Even when he's freaking out, he's not trying to be annoying, he's trying to help.
Pay attention to what you're doing.
He's trying to be a friend.
R2-D2, you know better than to trust a strange computer.
He wants to keep us safe
But this place is dangerous.
and help us take the easy way.
Well, I'm not going that way. It's much too rocky. This way is much easier.
And our fear is also trying to be a friend. It's saying, hey, watch out, don't step in that puddle. The problem is that sometimes we're wearing all our rain gear and we want to stomp around in the puddle for fun, but fear doesn't get that. So the first step is to start treating fear not as a foe, but as a friend. And treating it like a friend means listening to what it has to say, because if we don't listen, it will only speak louder and louder.
This time you have gone too far. No, I will not be quiet, Chewbacca. Why doesn't anyone listen to me?
So if we can listen to our fear with a friendly ear, it won't have to shout. A is for assumptions. C3PO catastrophizes a lot.
You're fortunate he doesn't blast you into a million pieces right here. We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel or smashed into who knows what.
For me, this is a classic moment.
Listen to them. They're dying, R2. Curse my metal body. I wasn't fast enough. It's all my fault. My poor master.
C3PO assumes they're dying, when in fact, they're celebrating. Similarly, most fears are based on a lot of assumptions. Fear makes assumptions about how safe a situation is,
Are you sure this thing is safe?
how we'll feel about it later,
I'm going to regret this.
and our ability to cope with difficulty.
I don't think I can make it. I'm done for.
So this step involves channeling our inner detective and fact-checking the fear. Becoming aware of these assumptions is much harder than it sounds. Why? Because so often fear speaks with absolute certainty. It is so confident it knows exactly what's going to happen, which is of course the worst thing that could possibly happen. I used to believe that voice, but now I call it out. Are you God? No. Do you have a time machine? No. Do you have a crystal ball? No. Then you don't know the future because you can't know. Therefore, you are making an assumption. More specifically, you are choosing to believe a specific assumption from among a wide range of possible and equally likely assumptions. Becoming aware of the assumptions that underlie our fears helps to soften its certainty and create more space. Then we can choose more realistic assumptions. This lowers the stakes, calms the anxiety, so we can think more clearly. C is for courage. It used to be that when fear popped up, it would fill my entire field of vision. Everything else would be eclipsed, and I became completely identified with the fear, like a very uncomfortably tight close-up. Treating my fear like C3PO, I remember there are other characters in the story. It's not just fear who's running the show, because C3PO is never alone. He always has R2-D2. Courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. I have a theory that at the root of all emotions is love, because if we didn't care deeply about something, we wouldn't actually feel anything at all. So courage reminds me to find the heart of what matters to me in this specific situation. There's usually something important that fear is protecting, like my relationships, my integrity, my self-respect. But there's also something really important about the creative thing that I'm trying to do. Personal values of freedom, expression, truth, beauty. So in this step, I need to get clear about all the things that I care about. Yes, the things fear is protecting are important, and so are the things my courage is calling me towards. So there's no need to get rid of C3PO. He's just incomplete without a little R2.
Come on, R2, we're going.
Finally, E is for experimentation, or said another way, give it a try and realize you won't die. I used to think that I could just sit on the sidelines and think my fear away, but it turns out the longer I delay taking action, the bigger the fear grows, exponentially. But it also isn't helpful, or kind, to shove myself into the deep end. Enter experimentation. The key is calibration. By finding the tiniest version of the thing that scares us, the baby step that feels doable, we can treat it like an experiment. No commitment, just try it and see how it goes. This way, we realize that a lot of fears are unfounded, and we get a taste for the enjoyment of the activity, which activates intrinsic motivation. And you might even find that the anxiety starts to morph into excitement.
Exciting is hardly the word I would choose.
One of the classic ways psychologists help people overcome phobias is called exposure therapy. So if someone has a fear of snakes, they might first watch someone in another room holding a snake. Then they might stand in the same room as the snake. And eventually, they touch it and even hold it. At each stage, only doing what feels manageable. If it starts to feel too much, you take a step back. Just keep experimenting. Also, every time we do something that we're afraid to do, our self-confidence grows, so we're more prepared for a slightly bigger experiment. There's a saying that no plan survives contact with reality, but I think you could say the same thing about fear. Unfortunately, C3PO doesn't have the luxury of calibrating his exposure because the galaxy needs saving and the clock is ticking. But he never stays on the sidelines, so he gets to experience those moments of satisfaction that make facing his fears worth it. So, there you have it. I hope you feel more equipped to face your fears the next time you start a creative project. Remember, just be friendly, become aware of your assumptions, connect to your courage, and experiment your way forward. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, you may enjoy this other one about creative mindsets. Until next time, may your creativity continue to surprise you.